Hey, everybody. So Mary Kate and I are here today to give you a little wrap up year-end report for 2021-2022's online regional ESL program. We thought it would be more helpful to just record a little presentation with some statistics and some results from that evaluation that we did at the end of the school year, and give us a little sneak peek of what's coming for next year. So the first thing we wanted to do is just kind of review the numbers for this year. We had 5 ABE consortia participate in this pilot project, and there were 19 teachers, tech assistants, and substitutes that worked this year as part of the program. Some of those were regular teachers and assistants that worked every night, and then we had a little bit of in and out with hiring. And then we had substitutes that came and worked in the program to help when we needed that. We served collectively 75 school districts. We had 7 managers that served on an ABE advisory team and 2 amazing PLC leaders. Mary Kate was one of those, and Lee Musel-Stalo was the other one. And we had one huge goal, which was to provide access and opportunity for all consortia and all students in Southwest Minnesota. Here are some fun facts about what happened this year. We had 105 evenings scheduled in the calendar. Our longest month was March, and our shortest was June. We enrolled people on a weekly basis, September through February, and then we started trying bi-monthly enrollments. Our largest section was ESL level 5. It had a wait list 3 different times, but the longest wait that a student had to endure was a 2-week wait to get into classes. We held PLCs on a monthly basis. They were an hour and a half each. We did that 9 times throughout the school year. And one thing that was very interesting was how the weather policy turned out. You know, typically we worry about ice and snow in the winter and driving when we think about weather or school closings. But in an online environment, there's no driving involved. And so winter was not an issue. The issues that we had came with thunderstorms, tornadoes, or wind in the spring and summer. So we had to set a new policy based on power outages and sirens going off at different areas of the region at different times. We did figure out our substitute practices. Subbing cross consortium was a big solution for us. And we realized quickly that we couldn't just call anyone to sub. They take a special skill set, and we had to do training and prepping for subs. So this year, region-wide, we served 247 students in Southwest Minnesota, unduplicated, and those students collectively earned 10,755 hours in the online synchronous class time. We did not count proxy hour time because that was counted at the local consortium, and so that is not part of this number.
This is a breakdown of the hours by month. Karen mentioned we started in September, about the third week of September. So that month we had 628 hours. You can see that once we got to November, our recruitment and enrollment processes kind of were solidified by this point. So we were able to ramp up to about 1,300 hours, and that continued to be the average hours per month throughout the whole program year, with a few exceptions. December, with our winter break, we dipped down just a bit, and April with Ramadan, that had a little bit of impact on our monthly hours also. And this is a chart that shows students who were enrolled at the beginning of each month. That's highlighted in the darker column, and the light gray column represents the number of students that persisted through the end of the month. So you can see there's quite a bit of turnover from the start of the month to the end of the month. Students not attending and being dropped, and then new students or returning students coming back at the beginning of the next month. So that remained consistent throughout the program year. We have a higher number starting than are able to persist through the end of the month. So this goes to show really the amount of work that our intake, assessment, orientation staff are going through just to get students enrolled. And this is happening constantly, weekly throughout the whole program year. So it's a lot of work, but it did pay off and the program was a huge success, as you could see by the previous numbers. We'll go through some program stats by individual program or consortium.
So the first consortium that we're going to highlight is Faribault County ABE. Faribault County ABE is the smallest consortium in the state of Minnesota. They have a much larger GED population than they do ESL. Unfortunately, they did not enroll any students this year into the evening ESL program that we're talking about. But they are committed to being part of this regional program because they believe that need is there, and there are times when students will enroll. They just haven't yet. We did find out that this consortium will be merging with the Southwest ABE Consortium in the 2022 to 2023 school year. Essentially, that merger is not going to change much. Faribault County region will still contribute funding to the program, to the project, and still enroll students. Sue Vogelsang is the director there, and she'll continue to be. And we're hoping that they have some students in 22-23.
AALC, this is the program supervisor is Nate Warden, and the majority of the students in this area are St. Peter, Waseca, LeSueur, LeCenter. And consistently, they had about 11 students enrolled per month, 27 unduplicated students for a total of 1,172.25 hours for the year.
Our next program is Glacial Lakes, which serves the Hutchinson, Wilmer areas and beyond. Glacial Lakes is coordinated by Ann Trokel. Glacial started out really strong with September 22 right away in September. They had a little bit of an issue with students following through. There was a lot of excitement about enrolling, but some students didn't persist. They did serve 51 students this year and they got 1,200 hours. So once they found their niche, it looks like they hovered right around mid-teens to high teens for numbers, which is really good.
And Mankato Consortium mainly serves Mankato, New Ulm, Sleepy Eye. That's where the majority of the students come from in this area. So consistently, we had about 45 students enrolled each month, serving a total of 92 unduplicated students and about 5,000 hours over the year.
Our next consortium is Southwest, the Marshall region of Southwest ABE. And Marshall started out a little slow. They didn't get people enrolled until October, but once they did, they really picked up. So as you can see, they went from 6 to 16 and then evened out for a while and ended in the 20s. They had 36 unduplicated students this year and 1,379 hours.
And Merved, this is the Montevideo area, part of the Southwest Minnesota Consortium. They served a total of 33 unduplicated students, attendance varying month to month, but high teens, low 20s seems to be the number enrolled per month for between 180 and 200 hours a month generally. Total 1,359.5 hours for Southwest Merved.
Our next consortia is the region of Worthington in Southwest ABE, and this is coordinated by Marty Olson. Southwest Worthington this is an interesting area. There's a huge service area, lots of rural school districts, and Worthington is kind of a hub in that area. And they have an existing face-to-face night program in Worthington that they did not want to get rid of, and they shouldn't. They were really looking at using the online program here to serve the people in the rural areas that could not come to Worthington. So they had a pretty steady group that was enrolled from outside of the Worthington area in the rural areas, and had 8 unduplicated, as you can see. They had pretty strong numbers every month, earned nearly 600 hours with this program, in addition to their face-to-face night program.
Now we're going to look at some of the same types of stats, but by level. So Karen mentioned in the beginning, we served 6 levels of students in 5 classes. So the first one we'll take a look at is level 1 and 2. We combined level 1 and 2, and you can see the numbers enrolled really never got much more than 15, 16. So combining those levels made a lot of sense for this class. And total hours for level 1, 2, 1,480.25 for the year. This was taught by Katie Young. She's an employee of Mankato, and Claudia Grunwald was funded by Glacial Lakes Consortium. So they worked together this whole year. They were a great pair and worked together to incorporate some pretty good engagement strategies for all of their students. And a big accomplishment they had this year, they served a student with a hearing impairment in level 1, 2 for most of the school year. Claudia speaks Spanish and English, and she's participated in multiple ABE programs and has been a student, so she really understands what students need and how to engage students at all levels. So it was great to have her working with Katie in this class.
Then we had level 3. This class was taught by Jennifer Johnson from Mankato. And then Lorena Gonzalez started out as the tech assistant from Worthington, and she had to leave in October. So Marty was subbing, in October until we could hire Elvia. And the picture there shows Elvia Brinks, and she stuck with us November through the end of the year. So this particular group had solid numbers. You can see mostly in the 20s. They hit up to 27 students in May, which is a huge group. This was Jen's first year as a teacher in our program. She had been a para in the past. And so she was engaging students in her first year, and she was also mentoring Elvia, because Elvia, Jen had been a para, so that worked out really well. Elvia speaks Spanish and English, which is super helpful with communication. So they had a really successful class this year.
Level 4 was taught by Valerie Danielson from the AALC. Started teaching in September with Catalina as the tech assistant. And we had a couple of reshufflings here with staff. So Heather Anderson left level 5 on September 30th for a new position in Mankato. And we asked Catalina to move to teach level 5. So she became the teacher of level 5. So we needed to replace her tech assistant position. Jed Hyam from Mankato filled out for a little bit, and then we were able to get Hiroko in there for the rest of the year. So Hiroko joined mid-October, and she's also from the Mankato Consortium. Both Val and Hiroko work in HighFlex classrooms at their respective sites. So Val's working in St. Peter, Hiroko's working in Mankato. They finally met for the first time in person in May of 2022 after they'd been working together for 7 months. So that was the cutest thing I've ever seen when they first met. I think they heard each other's voice in the hallway and realized that they were in the same building finally. So that was really exciting to see them come together. But level 4 was strong all year, mid-20s enrollment almost at all times. And level 4 had about 2,200 contact hours for the year.
I was there the day that they met each other and took a picture of them. It was so cute. I wish I would have put that in here, Mary Kate, but I didn't. So now we're going to talk about level 5. We started out level 5 with Heather Anderson teaching, and then when she got a job in Mankato full time, she left at the end of September for that, and we ended up moving Catalina from Montevideo, Granite Falls area. We had her move up to teaching, and then Nancy Zamanigo was in there the whole year as the tech assistant. So that was, some mentoring and switching that Mary Kate and Lee were working together to get all of that straight in September and October. But these two are a great pair together. Both of them are bilingual. They both speak Spanish and English. And unique to this is that also Nancy has been a student both in the Area Adult Learning Cooperative and Mankato programs for a couple of years prior to her employment with us. And so she was very aware of the online needs, online learning, knows the area, did a lot of recruiting over by Springfield and Sleepy Eye for the program. And so that was a real benefit to have Nancy in the program. They had really strong numbers. This is the level that ended up having a wait list a few times. As I mentioned earlier, they had to have a wait list about 3 times. Students had to wait a little bit to get in. As you can see, and those numbers are in the high 20s and low 30s. So that, if we get much higher than 20 to 25 in a meet, the quality of the meet can be compromised. So knowing that not all students are going to come every single night, we did enroll over 20. Obviously, we enrolled up to 30, but we really didn't want to go higher than that because we would have issues with our meet. So it's very successful level 5.
And level 6. Level 6 was taught by Chris Simpson from Mankato, and she started out the year with Matt Fisher from Marshall as the tech assistant. Matt was replaced by Deb Sodeman, also from Marshall, in early October. Deb was great. She did a lot of learning in the beginning and was able to fly totally independently by the end of the year, doing great work with Chris as the tech assistant for level 6. They make a great team, and Deb has had this year to observe and learn as a tech, and we have asked her to become the level 3 teacher for next school year. So that is super exciting. So all of her work this year paid off, and she'll now be the teacher for level 3 next year. So that's great. By doing this partnership, pairing 2 teachers together, we've really expanded our capacity for teachers and students in this region. So that's super exciting. And that was really our intention by pairing teachers together to kind of expand the capacity for the teacher and the programs. Level 6 also had great attendance, mid to low 20s attending each month for a total of about 2,100 hours for the year.
So
Go ahead.
now, do you want me to say this part?
Go ahead.
Now we're going to talk about some surveys that we did. If you recall, at the end of the school year in May, we did a survey with our teachers, and then we did a survey with our students. First going to talk about the teacher results.
So we did this survey in the last PLC of the year in May. We really wanted to capture teacher feedback on certain aspects of the program to really help us design and expand and enhance our program for next year. So here's what they had to say. We asked about what orientation needs did they think students needed more of before joining the class. So this is just based on their observation. What skills do students need when they come to class, and maybe what are they lacking? So they offered some advice, more instruction on how to use the chat and screen sharing, using either a school email or a Gmail, using Google Docs, and how to navigate tabs. So these are things we plan to enhance in our current orientation. I'll also be making some videos that will explain how to use some of these things, and those videos can just be used one by one. All programs will have access to them to use for their students. So that's something that I am working on this summer so we can roll out for next fall and to use throughout next year. We also asked them about new student starts, how often they thought new students should start class. 6 teachers said weekly, 2 said every 2 weeks, 3 said monthly, and 1 said staggered. So this kind of reaffirms what we did this year. We started off with weekly starts and then switched to every 2 weeks. So
And I think one of the reasons we started out with the weekly starts was because we wanted to make sure we could get the program capacity built, get the numbers up right away. We didn't want to wait for months to get that to grow. So we enrolled weekly, and we quickly, now when we look back at the data, realized that by November we were really already hitting, our pretty much peak enrollment. So
and
going
that
into
it might
go ahead.
happen a little quicker this year because we have processes established and we know
Mhm.
kind of how the system works. So it'll be a little bit easier to onboard students.
Yeah. And when you look at 6, the split is 6 and 6 really as far as enrolling weekly and enrolling maybe every 2 weeks. I think once we get to capacity, we'll probably go back to the every 2 weeks just because, um, it seems like when you think about the wait lists and how that happened last year, the most they really had to wait was about 2 weeks anyway on a wait list. So, it seems like every 2 weeks having a start or twice a month, seems like kind of a sweet spot.
We asked teachers about curriculum and how they felt it was meeting student needs. Teachers reported that they liked that the curriculum is aligned to standards, a little more need for supplemental materials for pronunciation, vocab, or reading, and a little more training for the standout online. We included announcements each week on the Google Sites for this regional program. Some feedback were that the announcements mainly apply to students in the Mankato area, and many are repeated weekly. And we weren't really good about removing old information. So something that we decided to do for next year is to house some of the ongoing resources in a different area on the student websites that they're going to get their classwork and join the Google Meet. I'll have a separate tab that says resources. So those things that are offered all year will just kind of live on that tab so they don't clog up the announcements. And then we're hoping that each program or each regional area will be able to send us information that's happening in their area so all students feel like they have something that applies to them at least monthly.
So when we see the survey results, like we see right here with curriculum, we know then what is needed to be done in the PLC work. So the reason that we did this survey is so that it can inform what we'll be doing next, obviously, right? So next year, we'll be working on some of that standout training in our PLCs. And we'll also look at those announcements and talk about, how are you going to train your students to look at the website for those resources? That might be where some of those online videos get stored, Mary Kate, that we've been talking about you making.
Yes.
Both resources for housing and food, but also resources for technology and how to get online and do the things they need to do.
Speaking of PLC meetings, we asked for just general feedback about the PLC meetings, and the teachers reported they would like more team meeting time to discuss current issues or plans. When they say team meeting, it's referring to the teacher tech assistant team. So each class has 2 staff. So that's what they mean by team meeting here. There's some issues with the PLC right before class time. Not everything applies to all people based on their location or their role, and just incorporating more general tech training. So, like Karen mentioned, all of this information is going to be used to inform our programming and our PLC and training. So, it's really good to have this feedback. And Lieve and I, when we created the survey, we wanted to make sure that it was anonymous so staff could feel like they could share really what they felt because we really want to use the information to make the program better going forward. We asked about assessment data, and there was some reports of post-test data lacking, so not receiving post-test information after students were post-tested. There's some lack of clarity for our students post-tested, and we just didn't get the information. Maybe they weren't able to reach students for post-testing. So this assessment data area is going to be a big focus of PLCs next year. How do we get the data? How do we improve post-testing procedures? How does that information get back to the teachers so they can use it to inform their instruction? Um, Listening tests not being used universally for placement. I think most programs have now ordered listening tests and plan to use those for all students when they enroll ESL students. So I think that was a big success after this year, realizing how important it is to have a reading and a listening test for each student for placement. So I think that will improve organically for next year, and just figuring out how to monitor that 40-hour testing policy, making sure students are getting post-tested as quickly as possible, and perhaps instituting a drop policy if students are not coming to take that post-test. So we've called them, we tried to contact them, they don't show up, give them a few chances, and then maybe saying, I'm sorry, but you'll have to wait. You didn't come take your test. So trying to tighten up those policies and procedures a little bit. We used Google Sites this year for all of our curriculum, Google Meets. It was the learner management system that we chose to use. Overall, the feedback was very positive. Some teachers report students need a little bit more help navigating to the website and around inside the website. And then a request for more training for teachers how to use it. So again, this will be incorporated into our PLC tech training topics. So good feedback to have. We used two programs for distance learning, MobiMax and Read Theory. We didn't start this until about December, since we were working out how to get students enrolled and provide orientations and all of that. We did not want to add on distance learning right off the bat. So that started about December. Um, Teachers requested more training really on how to find relevant content that matches the curriculum. We know that if students see there's a correlation between what they're learning in class and what they're doing for homework, they're more likely to do it and it's more meaningful for them. So lots of tech training we need to do this next year, but it's great to know what to train on. So roles. So we had two roles, the teacher and the tech assistant. All the relationships worked out pretty well. So that was great to see. And again, same request as before, a little bit more time for collaboration. They were able to meet 15 minutes before each class, but it seems like there's a need for just a little bit more collaboration between those two staff for each level. Um, Mixed results for support and training. Some say, yep, we need more training, slides, forums, MobiMax sites, all the things. And then some said, nope, no more training is needed. But you can see as we went through all the survey, there was kind of an undertone of like, oh, these are the things that are issues. So that really points to we need to enhance the training in those areas. Whether we can recognize it's training needed or not, it seems like that's usually a good place to start to work some of these things out. So lots on the agenda for those PLCs next year. Some general additional feedback. Everybody loves the option for students. They requested a planned spring break. That was requested by teachers and students. So we did incorporate that into the calendar for next year. The spreadsheet that we used to track attendance and student information and all sorts of things was a great resource. So we plan to continue that next year with changing it a little bit to make it a little bit more user friendly. And then some feedback that class sizes were too big at times. Anything else to add here, Karen, for the staff survey?
I don't think so.
Okay, moving on to the student survey. This was taken by 51 students. Every level participated, and they did it over 2 days. So it was just taken by whatever students happened to be in attendance on those days. So we asked students, what does this time work best for you? Thankfully, the majority said yes. This is the time we plan to schedule for next year. So it's good that it looks like it works for the majority of the students who took the survey. How many days a week can students come to class? So the orange area that is 68.6% represents 3 days a week. And that's currently what we have scheduled. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. 21% of students did say they could come 4 days a week. So there's been talk of maybe doing something to enhance this program on Mondays. And that would give those students that fourth day option. Which would be really nice, maybe like a tech day to support the tech needs of the online classes, something like that. We asked the students about how they felt about the class, the level, the rigor, how they felt, and 72.5% said it's just right, so that's great. 21.6 said it was too easy, and a smaller percentage said it was too hard, but the majority said it was just right. This was a very interesting question, and I thought it was really important to gather this data on how students are joining the class. Um, in this question, students were allowed to select more than one option. So this data does include students who selected more than one option. So 38 students said they use a computer, 17 a phone, and 8 a tablet. Some students may have selected computer and phone or tablet and phone. Um, I thought it was interesting to see that 74% of students have a computer. This is great. We were getting lots of feedback that most students are using a phone or a tablet, and we know that that's really just difficult for students to really engage and get the content on a phone or a tablet. So it's good to see that either students were able to purchase a computer or loan one from their site. But it seems like for the majority of students who took the survey, they were able to access a computer for class, which is awesome. That's really the best way to take an online class, so that's encouraging.
It would have been interesting to see in the very beginning if that would have been different, or if
Yeah,
if they realized throughout the school year I need to get a computer and then got one. But
yeah,
we didn't ask this survey at the beginning of the year. So this was done in May, which may
right.
have impacted the results that they eventually got one, you know.
Yeah. I think on the registration form for next year, I'm going to add a question for intake staff to ask, how do you plan to join class, or what device will you use? I think that would be helpful. We can take a beginning of the year kind of survey when they register, and then at end of the year. Also, I think it's helpful for teachers to know, oh yeah, this student has their phone. They might struggle a little bit with this activity. So I think that's something that I'll include for next year.
It's a good idea.
Um, we just wanted to kind of get students' sense of if they took a post test. This is just their anecdotal answer. So whether it's indicative of if they actually took a post test or not, we don't really know. 58.8% of students who responded to the survey said, yeah, I took more than one test to see my level. And 41 said, no, I only took one. So this is what we have. We'll talk a little bit more about post-test data later, but interesting to see their perspective. Additional feedback from the student survey. The majority of students said they liked the teachers, the materials, the ability to attend online and engage with other students. There were more requests for more or different types of online homework and additional access to in-person computer help. So if we're able to schedule some tech training, ongoing for students, or like a check-in day for help with things, that might be something that students are interested in. Overall, it's really good to have all this feedback.
So we presented all of this information to the ABE managers a couple weeks back, and we all agree that this model has great potential for serving more learners, providing access to those who otherwise would not have leveled programming in Southwest Minnesota. As you know, most of our programs are one-room schoolhouses, especially in the rural areas. So ESL programming is challenging in a one-room schoolhouse. This provides an opportunity for them, and we've all agreed that we want to continue this model for next school year. We've already talked to staff, and we have a lot of staff staying for the next school year. So that'll be really interesting to see how we go forward with our program. Just a little sneak peek. You know, this year we really focused on the logistics of this program. You know, how are we going to work together to, you know, make sure we're serving people, our staff, how are our staff going to mesh and work together? How are we going to manage this program? How are we going to report the hours back to the local consortium in a streamlined way so that everyone can, you know, get their contact hours into SID. We didn't get very far with things like distance learning platforms. We didn't get very far with looking at effectiveness of programming. You know, at the beginning of this school year, we were not yet out of our COVID exemption for testing. So if you remember, during the COVID, we were exempted from testing all the way until October of 2021. And so many students joined programs without tests in the summer last year and even in the fall of the year. So programs were getting back into the practice of testing and post-testing this year. We have noticed in Mankato that our post-testing rates are down and our level gain percentages are down this last year. I hoped that they would be coming back to pre-COVID levels, but they're not there yet. And so I had Mary Kate pull this report on our level gains, and this is just for our evening programming. This is all levels of our evening programming for this pilot. So as you can see, we have the post-test rate, what percent of the students in each level have been post-tested and what percent have made a gain. Ideally, the benchmarks for the state, they would like to see over 70% of your students be post-tested, and even higher if possible. And we post-tested 47.6% of the Mankato students this year. I would love to see that be way higher next year. There's a lot of reasons for why that number is low, and we don't exactly know what those reasons are yet. It could be that some of these students joined late in the year and didn't have 40 hours yet and were not eligible to post-test yet. It could be that they were called and asked to test and they didn't show up when they scheduled an appointment. We don't have a mechanism in place to stop them from coming to class if they refuse or don't do a post-test. We just let them keep going. And so there's really no consequence to not post-test. Those are things that we will have to look at next year, because obviously if we can't show the effectiveness of a program, it won't go. I mean, we all have to make sure that students are making gains and meeting their goals, or we'll be in program improvement in the end. So the percent post-tested will need to be higher in order to see the level gain rate higher, because if you don't post-test them, there obviously won't be any level gains. So in this case, 27% of the night students from Mankato made a level gain. We need to see that number be at the state benchmark, which is 43%. So we're down. And, you know, this year was our first year. And so we're not going to sit and beat ourselves up for these numbers. What we're going to do is take this data and ask that all of the areas that we've represented today and talked about pull this data for their area. And we'll send the information out to each manager and say, please collect this data and give it back to us. And when we come into our fall gathering, our fall staff meeting where we all come together and start our new year, we will look at this data and we will talk about processes and procedures for ensuring that post-testing is happening when people hit 40 hours, and really follow up on that more this year. I think we had a lot to do this year in getting staff trained, in making sure everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody not just staff that are teaching and assisting, but all the intake staff across the whole 75 school districts that we're serving, that they knew how to do intake and make sure people knew how to get on the computers and get computers, and the process of enrolling them into the Mankato group so that we could put them into the spreadsheet. I mean, that's a lot for everybody to learn and master in 1 year. And so we made great strides in getting all the logistics in place. And this coming year, as a sneak peek, I just want everybody to realize that the next step will be looking at program effectiveness and what can we be doing to improve that throughout 2022, 2023. Mary Kate, do you have anything to say about that?
No, but thank you. That's all we have to say. Thank you for
Yeah,
everybody's hard work. It was a giant undertaking, and it was quite taxing at times, and it was extra and more things on more people. So we appreciate all of your efforts and all of your flexibility, and I think it was a huge success. So hopefully
it-
you feel that way too.
well, we have data that it was a huge success. And so thank you to everybody in the region who participated, and we look forward to a new school year.